Would you stay silent? Or let revenge speak for you? Welcome to the stories on Shattered Vengeance. Step into a world where love turns dangerous, revenge feels inevitable, and every story drags you deeper into the shadows of desire, betrayal, and the human heart. Let's begin today's story. The wedding reception sparkled with 500 guests, crystal chandeliers, and a 12-tier cake that cost more than most people's cars. My sister Victoria glowed in her Vera Wang gown, accepting congratulations from everyone who mattered in London's high society. I stood near the kitchen in my simple black dress, holding a tray of champagne flutes I'd been ordered to distribute. "Emma, table 7 needs drinks," my mother hissed, appearing beside me with her characteristic disapproval and smile. "You look miserable." "I'm fine, Mom. You're embarrassing us. Victoria's wedding is the event of the season, and you're skulking around like some mourner. If you're not going to contribute meaningfully, at least make yourself useful with the waitstaff." Contribute meaningfully. I was the senior policy advisor to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, currently managing Brexit trade negotiations with the EU. My work shaped international relations for 67 million people. But my family thought I was an unemployed civil servant who couldn't keep a job. "Of course, Mom," I said quietly. I tried to tell them. 3 years ago when I'd been appointed to the PM's advisory team. But Dad had interrupted with commentary about Victoria's latest modeling contract. 2 years ago when I'd traveled to Brussels for critical trade talks. But Mom had been too busy planning Victoria's engagement party to listen. 6 months ago when I'd been featured in The Guardian as one of the top 50 policymakers under 40. But they didn't read The Guardian. Too political apparently. So I'd stopped trying. And now I was serving champagne at my sister's wedding while the actual waitstaff gave me pitying looks. My phone buzzed. A text from the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. "Trade agreement approved by Commons. PM wants your assessment before the press conference. He's at the wedding. Can you brief him?" I looked across the ballroom. Prime Minister Harrison was indeed here, sitting at table 3 with other government officials Victoria's in-laws had invited. He caught my eye and nodded slightly. Give me 10 minutes. I set down the champagne tray and headed toward the PM's table, weaving through guests who parted for waitstaff without seeing me. "Excuse me," I said quietly to the Prime Minister. "Sir, we need to discuss the Commons vote." He looked up, recognition immediate. "Emma." "Of course. Shall we find somewhere quiet?" We headed toward a private room off the ballroom. Behind me I heard my mother's sharp voice. "Emma, where are you going?" "The drinks." "One moment, Mom." In the private room the Prime Minister pulled out his tablet while I accessed the vote breakdown on my phone. 3-vote margin, he said, scanning the results. Tighter than we hoped. But it passed. The EU delegation will accept these terms. I've been in contact with their chief negotiator all week. This is the breakthrough we needed. Your work made this possible, Emma. The economic analysis, the diplomatic outreach, exceptional. He paused. "I wasn't aware this was your sister's wedding. You should have said something. I wouldn't have come if I'd known it would complicate your family time. They don't know what I do, sir. They think I'm between jobs." His eyebrows rose. "You're senior policy advisor to the Prime Minister. How could they not know? They've never asked. And when I've tried to explain, they weren't interested. Victoria's modeling career is more exciting, apparently. Well, that's absurd. Your work is literally shaping the future of the country." He checked his watch. "I'm doing a brief press statement in 30 minutes about the trade vote. I'd like you there. It's proper to acknowledge the advisors who made it happen." "Sir, I appreciate it, but this is my sister's wedding. Maybe we could—" "Emma, you've been serving champagne for the last hour at your own sister's wedding. I think you've been accommodating enough. Besides, the press pool is already here. They set up in the East Garden for Victoria's ceremony. We might as well use them." 20 minutes later, a press podium was being set up in the garden. Word spread quickly that the Prime Minister would be making an announcement. Guests filtered outside, curious about this unexpected political moment at a society wedding. My mother was furious. "This is Victoria's day. What is he doing?" "Making a statement about the trade vote," someone explained. "It just passed Commons an hour ago. Quite significant, actually." Victoria looked less annoyed than I expected. "This is actually perfect. All the photographers are already here. I'll be in the background of every news shot. Great publicity. The Prime Minister took the podium looking every bit the statesman. I stood to the side, still in my simple black dress, still clutching my phone with the trade analysis. Good evening. I apologize for interrupting this beautiful celebration, but I wanted to share some significant news. The House of Commons has just approved the EU trade framework we've been negotiating for 18 months. This agreement secures economic partnership, protects British interests and maintains critical EU relationships post-Brexit. Applause from the crowd. Cameras flashed. This achievement wouldn't have been possible without the tireless work of my policy team. In particular, I want to acknowledge Senior Policy Advisor Emma Thornton, whose economic analysis and diplomatic outreach were instrumental in securing EU cooperation. He gestured to me. I stepped forward reluctantly as cameras swiveled in my direction. Emma has spent the last 18 months in negotiation rooms in Brussels, Paris, Berlin and The Hague. She's drafted position papers, analyzed trade impact across 47 sectors, and built relationships with EU officials that made this agreement possible. At 34, she's one of the most influential policy advisors in modern British government. My mother's face had gone completely white. My father looked like he'd been struck. Victoria's perfect smile had frozen in place. Emma, would you like to say a few words about the agreement? The Prime Minister asked. Sir, this is my sister's wedding. And you've been serving drinks instead of celebrating. Humor me. I approached the podium, blinking in the camera flashes. The trade framework represents a new chapter in UK-EU relations. We've secured favorable terms for British agriculture, manufacturing and services while maintaining the partnership both regions need. The negotiations were complex, but the outcome benefits everyone. A reporter called out, Ms. Thornton, sources say you personally convinced the German delegation to compromise on manufacturing tariffs. Can you comment? I presented economic data showing mutual benefit. The Germans are pragmatic. Good data drives good decisions. Is it true you speak 4 languages? French, German, Spanish, Mandarin and English. It helps in multilateral negotiations. Another reporter. Your sister is Victoria Thornton, the model. Are you too close? I glanced at Victoria, who looked like she wanted to disappear. Victoria is very successful in her field. We're different people with different paths. Does your family support your work in government? That was a loaded question. I chose my words carefully. My family is very focused on Victoria's career. As they should be. She's accomplished a great deal. The Prime Minister stepped in smoothly. Emma is too modest. Her work affects millions of lives. The trade agreement alone will impact our economy for decades. That's rather more significant than modeling, with all due respect to the bride. The dig was subtle but unmistakable. Victoria's face flushed. After the press conference, guests approached me with new expressions. Respect, curiosity, some embarrassment. People who'd ignored me while I carried drinks now wanted to discuss policy, ask about Brussels, request introductions to the PM. My parents found me near the garden gate. Emma, Dad said carefully, we had no idea you were so involved in government work. I tried to tell you. Multiple times. You said you worked in civil service, Mom protested. You never said you were the Prime Minister's senior policy advisor. I said I was a policy advisor. You assumed it was clerical work and stopped listening. Well, you could have been clearer. I was featured in The Guardian 6 months ago. Top 50 policymakers under 40. There was a photo and everything. You never mentioned it. Silence. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked finally. I did tell you. You weren't interested. Victoria's modeling shoots and brand deals were more exciting. So I stopped trying. Victoria approached, her bridal glow somewhat dimmed. Emma, I'm sorry. I didn't know about any of it. I thought you were just, I don't know, working some office job. I know what you thought. That's why Mom had me serving drinks instead of sitting at the family table. The family table? Mom's voice pitched upward. Emma, you were invited to the family table, where you sat me next to your friend's unemployed son because you thought I needed help finding work. I heard you telling him to give Emma career advice before the ceremony. Dad winced. We were trying to help. I don't need help. Have a career. One that apparently matters enough for the Prime Minister to interrupt a society wedding to acknowledge it. The Prime Minister himself approached, having finished with the press. Emma, excellent work today. Both on the trade agreement and handling those questions. You should get back to the celebration. He turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Thornton, you should be immensely proud of your daughter. She's one of the finest minds in British government. We are proud, Mom said automatically. Wonderful. Then you'll understand when I steal her away for the G7 summit next month. Canada is hosting, and Emma's expertise on international trade policy is essential. He smiled. I'm sure you'll miss her, but service to the country must come first. After he left, we stood in awkward silence. The G7 summit? Dad said weakly. Emma, that's part of my job. Along with EU negotiations, parliamentary briefings, economic policy development, and apparently serving champagne at weddings. We'll fix this, Mom said. We'll move you to the family table right now. Make an announcement. Don't. I'm leaving actually. I have briefing documents to review before tomorrow's cabinet meeting. You're leaving your sister's wedding? Victoria asked. I was never really here, was I? I was waitstaff. Background help. The unemployed sister who couldn't contribute meaningfully. I softened slightly, looking at Victoria. I hope you and David are happy. Truly. Your wedding is beautiful. But I have work to do. I walked toward the exit, passing tables full of guests who now knew exactly who I was. The invisible sister who'd shaped Brexit negotiations while they'd ignored her. My phone buzzed. The PM's chief of staff. Brilliant press conference. BBC is running your quotes as lead story. Emma Thornton is trending on Twitter. I smiled slightly. At least someone noticed my work. 3 months later, I received an OBE from the Queen for services to international trade policy. My parents attended, finally understanding what I'd been trying to tell them for years. Victoria sent flowers with a note. I'm sorry I never asked. Your work matters. You matter. I kept the note. But I never forgot the wedding where I served champagne while the Prime Minister waited to brief me. Where my family saw waitstaff. And the country saw an architect of their future. The invisible sister who'd been running the country all along. Finally visible. Finally acknowledged. Finally free to be exactly who I'd always been. Senior Policy Advisor Emma Thornton. Who occasionally served drinks at weddings. But never again.